All right, I'm seeing some people come in. See some
Welcome,
familiar
welcome.
names. A lot of
Um, I see insurance agent. That seems familiar.
familiar. Hopefully, we have a few insurance agents on this call. That would be ideal.
I'm thinking so. Probably a good idea.
For folks who are just jumping on, we usually give a couple minutes. We have an unofficial start time of 2 minutes after the meetings start. That's kind of the rule. So once we get that critical mass. Hello from Texas as well. I'm in Austin, Texas.
Charlie is true Texas. He has ostrich boots. I've seen him.
I do. I got my full quill boots.
I'm still saving up for mine, man.
Hey, you gotta go secondhand. No shame.
Okay.
We got Alex. Alex, this is twice. I've talked to you through a webinar in a week. That's great. Good to see you.
Oh, we got some Florida folk. All right.
Again, we'll just give it another minute for folks who are jumping on. Closing in on 100 attendees. We're at 73 right now. 74.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Cool. All right, I think we're close enough to critical mass. Hopefully, we'll keep creeping up. I see folks are coming in as I'm chatting. So, do want to get started. Want to respect your time. So, welcome to the second webinar that I've hosted this week. We're talking with Justin Jacobs, the president of HPM. We're talking about making the leap from agent to agency principal. So, this is a conversation that I have had with a ton of people, and Justin, I know it's the same for you. To
Mhm.
introduce myself, I lead the account management team here at Spark. I've been at Spark for about 3 years, from the time when I had no idea what a provider or a carrier was to knowing way too much about the Medicare industry. So, yeah, happy to be here with Justin. Justin, maybe you want to do a brief introduction?
Yeah, Justin Jacobs. I am the mastermind, head honcho, if you will, of Health Plan Markets. We're celebrating our 12th year as an FMO. We're based in Orlando, Florida, and I am celebrating my 20th year as an insurance agent. I
Wow.
know, I know, they got me out of middle school, so
And if you're not familiar with Spark or with HPM, so as Justin said, HPM is an FMO. Spark is an NMA who works closely with HPM and other FMOs, and we are a technology partner, aimed at accelerating your growth. So that's who you're here with today. Some housekeeping items. This event is being recorded, so you'll be able to get a recording. Oh, great, we got a slide for it and everything. My team is pros. Um, I saw a bunch of questions get submitted in advance. We kind of compiled those. There were a lot of themes there, so we're going to talk about some of those. So thank you for submitting those. And we'll share some of that after the event as well. And then, yeah, please feel free to use the Q&A for more questions throughout. We've got Sam Brody on my team who's working on that. He also works really closely with the HPM side. So, yeah, I think with that, I would love to show everyone a meme that I made for this for this event specifically, right? So the concept of this meme is you got two different attitudes, right? And you can have the sunny attitude, oh wow, I'm really loving that I started my Medicare agency, or wow, I'm really bummed that I started my Medicare agency. And Justin, we've had many conversations over the years. I think you definitely lean positive, but there are challenges, right? So. I think our goal is to get everyone to the right side of the bus where you're looking out and you got a smile on. So, yeah, kind of like how we'll organize this conversation. Justin will
Mhm.
share his experience about building HPM and going from himself to 10 to 100 to 1,000 plus agents, and then we'll talk about kind of the signs that show when you're ready to start to build an agency and tackling those different growth challenges that you have each step of the way. Um, We got a lot of questions on recruiting and on training, which we'll get to. We definitely won't be able to cover all questions, but we'll be able to go, in depth on a few of them, and then, future conversations like we'd be happy to have to go more in depth. But we only have a short period today, so commission structures, for example, really good question, not a great question for a webinar. So something to dig into, with your upline or with Spark or HPM. And would love to start with an audience poll, actually, like where folks are in their journey. I know the answer to some of y'all because I recognize a bunch of names, but would you say you're like exploratory? So you're evaluating becoming an agency principal, or you've became an agency principal, so you're in this build stage and you're looking to kind of launch your own agency, or you're a pretty solid agency right now and you're looking to kind of scale and like really hit the gas. Just kind of, figure out who our audience is.
So Charlie, in case this whole insurance thing doesn't work out, I think you really have a future in making some memes, and your team feels the same sentiment.
I like to be the funny guy. I feel like that's why they keep me around.
The comic relief.
You're not laughing. If you're not laughing, you're crying.
Amen.
Okay, we have a really good spread. So we've got a bunch of folks who are exploratory. I'm going to assume that most of y'all are agents, and you're like, hey, I've got my own book of business, and I'm, thinking of taking the leap. Scaling is great, 36%. Like that means we got a lot of folks who are, hey, I know what I'm doing here, but I really want to like figure out the next step for me. I've talked with a lot of folks at that stage, and then build smallest percentage, but still like a quarter of the audience here is like, yeah, I've got an agency or I'm at that level, but I'm still like worried about that next step or thinking about that next step rather. So great. This is really helpful. And I think we can kind of talk all over the board, Justin. Some things are going to be more relevant to other people. And then, yeah, let's jump into, I guess, Justin, like, how did you start HPM? Like what inspired you for that?
Oh yeah. So my career started. Actually, I was an intern for a physician office, and my job was to go out and promote those doctors. And I learned very quickly on how to promote people, which in college we studied service and products. And so I found that intriguing. Got really good at promoting doctors, and that turned into um, me really creating lead generation opportunities for agents. And so my job was to create leads, and then I would go out and make friends with insurance agents and say, "Hey, can you enroll these people in our clinic?" And I made a lot of really good friends from insurance agents. I don't know why. I mean, I was just all I was doing was just giving them leads, So I had a friend of mine that said one time, he said, you should really get your license. You know this business pretty well. And I said, no, I'm not, I don't want to do that. And then he showed me his paycheck, and I was like, holy smokes, I'm getting my license tomorrow. So that's how I got into this thing. It wasn't like I woke up and I was like, 4 years old and I was like, I want to be an insurance agent. I don't think anybody on this call did that. So I'm with you on that. But fast forward, I've been an independent insurance agent. I've been a captive agent. I've been a sales manager, marketing director for many years prior. So I've pretty much always been in this business in some capacity. So in 2013, I was looking around at the market, and there was really only two options here in the Orlando market, and both of them were absolutely terrible. They didn't treat agents very well. They were outcasts, 1099s, no support, no marketing, really no help. I mean, even like going in and asking for sales kits was like, it was a joke. So I was out there on my own, started out of the trunk of my car, and, built a pretty sized book of business, pretty good sized book of business over the years. And I was just really frustrated with the way that the landscape was. So came up with this concept of like really creating an agency home that felt like you were captive, but you were still independent. In fact, our first tagline was be independent, but not on your own. So like, that's so dear to my heart. So we treat our agents like employees, but they still work for themselves. We want to give them all the same benefits of that. So ran that idea through to a couple of my friends that were agents, and they're like, if you build that, we're coming with you. So that's really how I got started back in 2013. We've evolved now. We have a nice office, and uh, actually a few offices now, and we're supporting, like it says on the screen, over 1,000 agents. And we actually did our numbers yesterday in our leadership. We're at 58,000 members.
Wow.
So we had a really good quarter last quarter. So
Yeah.
we're proud to.
I was just
Yeah.
with you, and I was able to put my luggage in the back of your car, so I know that your trunk wasn't filled with sales kits anymore.
No, just Charlie's dirty laundry. So,
The end of the
but
journey.
yeah, so now it's at this stage of my life, I'm really passionate about scaling and business development, and helping people get to the next level, and hopefully shortcut some of the pitfalls that I had over the last 10 years. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, 12 years. Sorry.
Maybe to go off that, like, what are some of those like key inflection points over the past 12 years? Not to, I know we could probably spend a day talking about that, but
Um, as far as like things to avoid, I'm pretty sure you have a slide on that. But like high level stuff is, when you're first starting your agency, you need funding, right? Like you're
mm,
going to need to figure out how to pay for things, whether it's an office or a telephone system or your first assistant. And I'll share what I did, which may not be right for you. But what I did is I fully invested my personal income, my book of business. I just put it into the company as income. And we survived off of that. And so, I paid myself a humble salary, continued to sell, everything went to the house till it got to a certain point that, I was okay to, increase my salary. So, in the beginning, you got to bootstrap it if you don't have
yeah,
funding externally, and that's the way that I did it, is leveraging my book of business. So that's the first thing that I would say. If you're like wanting to do that agency jump, like how am I going to pay for stuff? You might have to take a pay cut at first, and figure out how you're going to invest this thing, or
yeah.
invest into this thing.
Maybe let's jump into build and
Yeah.
start with that group of folks on this call who are like maybe at that stage of like, hey, I am a one person operation right now. Excuse me. What are those signs that someone is ready to build their own agency? Because not everyone probably should start an agency just because you got a big book and you're writing business and you're really great at that. Like maybe it makes sense for you to just be an individual agent. Like, what are the signs that someone's ready?
Yeah, I mean, our core values are really reflective here, in that. And the first one is invested in team success. Like you're ready if you have knowledge, right? And you find yourself passionate about helping other agents. If you're annoyed with that process, probably not a good idea for you to be an agency owner, because that is exactly what you'll be doing for a long time until you hire somebody, right? So you have to put your agents first before you. And if you do not do that, what will happen is there will be resentment. Why is Justin always selling more than I am? Why is he getting all the leads? And then there becomes this nepotism
Mm,
inside your own agency. So you have to be ready to help others, and that's where investing in that success is important. So it may mean giving your leads away. It may mean, taking them on appointments with you, teaching them the business, spending long nights or weekends with your agents, to invest your time, energy, and knowledge into them.
yep.
If that doesn't excite you, then yeah, I'd say, do your thing. And there's nothing wrong with being an agent. It's sometimes, Charlie, I wish I could just go back
Yeah, right.
because especially, everybody got a raise again this year, about 11% increase. It's like, dang, man, what am I doing? um, but the other part is inspiring and mentors the next generation, which kind of ties into what I was just saying. Um, you know, Having knowledge is one thing, but like you have to constantly be learning. Like this business is first learn and then teach, right?
Yep.
You have to learn this because as a sales agent, and I hope you're taking this approach, is you're learning what CMS is putting out, what Medicare is putting out, what the plans are putting out, and then you're teaching your clients what those are, right? So it's learn, teach, and then so the in between there, is like learn, then teach your agents so they can teach their clients, right? So there's a little bit of that needs to happen in your mindset. Integrity is huge. I mean, I hope I don't have to say anything more on that. Like, just don't be shady with your clients or your agents. The truth always comes out. And so, transparency is huge for us. Purpose driven, this is how people really resonate on whether or not they're being successful. Quick story. I have some newer agents that they come in and they say, we have a sales board, for motivational purposes or whatever. And some agents find it helpful, some don't. But we often have like rookies or intermediary agents come in and they're looking at these top dogs that are doing, big numbers. And they're like, man, what are they doing? What are they doing? I'm like, you're a rookie in this league. You shouldn't be comparing yourself to the Babe Ruth right now. This guy's been doing business for 10 years, or 20 years or whatever. So there's a little bit of that, but like meeting people where they are and figuring out, comparatively, what does success mean for you? And then finding that purpose. My purpose in the beginning was really serving those that serve others. And that's on our wall right now, serving those that serve others. We serve our agents so they can serve their clients. So my purpose is really the service, which is that servant's heart on the bottom. It's part of our core values is, we're in a business of serving others. And if you don't realize that's, it's very impactful. So you're taking that servant's heart of saying, hey, look, I'm helping my clients, to like, hey, I'm helping my agents. Now, the end for your agents is twofold. You're still helping clients through them, right? The second thing is you could be changing somebody's life as an agent, right? You're impacting their income, their lifestyle, their ability to grow as a person. All these things are like massively important. But you have to look at it from that framework of like, I'm helping an agent succeed. I'm helping a person succeed in their professional career. And so like, if any of these things do not resonate with you, then yeah, it may not be the right fit for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like super tactically, they might resonate with you, but maybe you're not ready yet. And this, like Monica asked a question in the Q&A, like, how many lives did you have in your book of business when you started your agency? Maybe like, let's generalize that. Like, is there a safety net where you think, hey, like you should at least get to this point, or is it not that binary?
Yeah, it's really all dependent on the person, right? I mean, I can't tell you what your lifestyle is. If you've got kids to feed and you don't have maybe a spouse and you don't have anybody to lean on, or you don't have deep pockets, or you don't have any of those things, then yeah, it's not impossible, right? In my journey, I had a windfall, so I invested my commissions to get this thing started.
Right.
And I was all in at that point. And then I lived off of, part of that. But I'm kind of a psychopath in a way that like I could totally do crazy things, right? And I don't expect everyone to have the same risk tolerance that I do. So that's a question that you have to ask yourself. Like, what's the bare minimum that I need to make out of my book of business? Like maybe you're making,
Right.
I don't know, maybe you're making 80,000 and you really want to put some juice on this thing. And maybe like 40,000 of your income would be great to get this agency off the ground. Can you live off of 40,000? That's a question I can't answer for you.
Right.
But that's one way of doing it. The other way is like, you could get an SBA loan. You could, go to your uncle. You can go to the Italian mob. Like all of these are different ways that you can get money. I don't recommend the latter,
yeah, sure.
but there's different ways to get, seed money, if you will. Some people are lucky enough to do venture cap. Just wasn't our gig. So, but if you want to bootstrap it, that could be a way.
Yep. Yeah, I think I saw Kath. I saw a question there. I don't think that's the advice is like if you don't have a book or you haven't, supported clients, then you should jump in. I have
Mhm.
seen some agency principals where they're a two-headed organization. And Justin, I know you've had a lot of support from your team, but there's some situations where the agency principal is really the operations person, and they're helping the agents in a way that's not related to actually writing business, but you're still going to have someone who does have that experience and then has that servant mindset. So that's like kind of what my response to that one would be. And we had another question about from Jessica, like how do you start from scratch? Yeah, like what is like one of the first things you should do if you're like, okay, I have my book, I have that, 40,000 or whatever it is. What's like the
Mhm.
first thing you feel like you should do?
I had a client that had an agency at one point in his life, and he was retired, and he's a very smart guy. And he mentioned something to me, and it was a field of dreams moment. He says, "If you build it, they will come." And I asked him, like, "What do you mean?" He says, "Like, get an office, and you'll find agents."
Right.
And I didn't do that right away. And in this day and age, it's definitely different because we're very hybrid, we're very mobile, but maybe have a home base somewhere,
Hmm.
even if it's at your garage, whatever. I mean, you don't have to get all fancy in the beginning. My suggestion to our agency partners that we have is like go as lean as possible for as long as you can,
Hmm.
right? Because if you're not right financially, it's going to resonate everywhere in your organization. So like if it means like, hey, I can't really do this thing right now because that means I got to take another paycheck, and like I'm going to get divorced if I do that, like don't do those things, right? But like make smart decisions, be patient with yourself. I think a home base is great. I mean, you could, if you have 5 agents to start with, that's a great start. I mean,
Yep.
you plus four, there's five right there. That's a decent start. I mean, I'll tell
Yep.
you that much. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that, being in the same room and just like that, kind of transfertive property, right? Like you're able to jump in a car and go on a ride along with someone, right? You're able to show them when you're in the office. A client walks in and you're like, "Hey, this is how it's done," right? And then you're teaching someone to
Mhm.
fish, and that's a good way to start. So love that answer. Okay, we also had we talked about how maybe we weren't going to get into commission questions, but Matthew asked
Right.
a question that I think is great. Um, did you hire W-2 or 1099? Like, how did you make that decision? And, how has that evolved as you grew?
Mm. So for me, specifically in 2013 in Orlando, Florida, the market was heavy 1099. So like W-2s were not a thing, captives were not a thing here in this market, right? So I read the room and I said, we're going to do a 1099 thing. So we really built our organization on 1099s, and supporting agencies as their own organizations. Now, as we've expanded into other states, we've seen, different scenarios, an LOA, which stands for line of authority. Essentially, you have an agent that works under your writing number, and they assign all the commissions to the house, and then you decide what they get paid. That model is prevalent in other parts of the country. So I would say like read the room on that. I will say if I was to start over today, I probably would start with an LOA model just because of me, my knowledge, and what I know I can do. That's me.
Yep.
But it's totally. I would say depending on your market, read the room. There's a lot more opportunities. Like in Florida, it's huge 1099, especially if you're in South Florida, Central Florida. 1099s is a thing. But it's not to say that you can't build
Right.
a captive or LOA model.
I think also your to Kath's point, like your math changes. Um,
Hmm.
or to Kath's question, like your math changes because if you're like, hey, I'm going to start LOAs, like you probably should have a pretty strong referral network or lead source or book of business because you're not going to be able to afford to pay people if you can't give them leads, right?
Right.
It's always a
Yeah.
little bit more expensive when there's a pay going out and no income coming in, right?
Hmm.
Okay, cool. I think that's a good question to transition to like how do you scale, right? So we talked a little bit about just that building stage and when you think you're ready, maybe what some of those pitfalls are. But let's talk about like scaling as an agency leader. 2013 you started. So what have like been the biggest challenges and like maybe give some specific examples of those challenges?
Yeah, and just to kind of, you know, we're gonna talk about the pitfalls. Here we go. Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
uh,
Challenges, pitfalls, opportunities,
yeah.
there, I'd say.
No, this is awesome. As an agency principal, one of the biggest pitfalls I see first is folks holding on to sales too long. They're still selling, and the more you sell, the less time you have for your team, right? Um, in the beginning, it may be absolutely necessary. Like, hey, Justin, I've got to continue selling until I get to this point, but get to that point and then start backing out. I usually use the analogy of like, you don't see Bill Gates selling computers, do you? No, right? So the owner of the company should not be selling. It gets to the point where you'll get there, whatever that number is for yourself. But after that moment, I know it's very addictive. Your clients are going to want you. The commissions are fantastic. All of the things I get, but like, if you really want to make this thing work, you got to get yourself out of sales as quick as possible. So that's a huge one. Which means that you've got to learn to delegate too. And one of the ways that you can use that as a weapon is when you're recruiting agents. You could say, hey, look, I'm getting out of sales and I have people still calling me. I'd love to give you some of those leads. You guys work out a deal, whatever that looks like. And that's one way that you can kind of use that as recruiting, because it's twofold. It's giving you an agent that you're getting leads and you're getting out of sales, right? Delegation is, I'll be perfectly honest, if I had a Bible here, I'd put my hand on it. I am still struggling with delegation myself. It is a life learning thing that I am working on. It's very hard to delegate things that you do really well to other people. We have 21 employees here, and growing, and so I do also struggle with delegation. But the sooner you master that, the better your life becomes, in my opinion. Underestimating growth challenges. Yeah, that's a thing. I
It'll all
mean,
be fine.
yeah, just hold on to your butt. You guys have grown exponentially. I heard recently over 100 employees at Spark. So between us, that's a lot of people, right? Um, Growing, some of the challenges that you have is like, you could grow too fast. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say you're like, I really need an assistant and I really need a sales manager and I really need a commissions person or whatever that looks like. And you hire all these people, and like, it's great because you have to, but like, your cash flow takes a hit, or you don't have a place for them to sit, or, you know what I mean? So like, I would say mapping out is huge. Like, mapping out your game plan. What does your 10-year plan look like? Build that out. What does 3 years from now look like? What does a year from now look like? And then you take that year and you break it down per quarter. Like, and right now, one of my we're on EOS, so I use rocks as a term, but one of my rocks is like, I've got to develop the rest of our hiring strategy for the rest of 2025. So I'm going six months in advance right now. So that helps me kind of plan for the future a little bit more, instead of being so knee-jerk reaction on like, oh, hey, I got to do this thing and I'm going to go do this thing. You're going to find yourself in a bad place if you make those quick decisions.
Yeah.
Hard conversations. There's a saying that I say is, hire slow, fire fast. Meaning, like, everyone from your agents to your staff has to be a good fit. Even with us, we now use our core values and we turn them around to, yes, agents, are they a fit for our core values? Are our employees there for our core values? And then even our partners like Spark, like, we use it on you guys. Like, are you a good partner for us? And are we a good partner for you? And the answer, is a resounding yes, obviously. Right. But when it's not, I've had to fire agents, and it sucks because they did something stupid, or they're a troublemaker, or they're non-compliant, or they just don't meet our standards, and we're just tired of their behavior. One of the biggest ones for me is like if they yell at my staff, like, no, 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 we're not doing that. Here's your
Yeah.
release. Have a nice day. If you want to yell at somebody, you can call me any day, like that's cool, but like never to my people, right? They work really hard. So if you avoid those conversations, it just becomes terrible. So that's a big thing. And then skipping over business fundamentals. Do you know how to run a meeting properly? Do you know how to balance your books? Do you know, how to create a business plan? All of which are, I see a lot of agency owners just kind of just glaze over the top of that. So,
Right.
be a student of business is a thing, because going from agent to agency, like, yeah, you're a business owner as an agent, but at the same time, when you want to start an agency, you're starting a true business, and you
Right.
must be a student of business.
Yep. There was a question about like, hey, I'm a have a mortgage brokership and like I want to get into this. I think a good point there is like, can you train people on Medicare? Like, do you have that knowledge? Because people need training, right? Training is
Yeah.
a huge part of running a successful agency. I know a lot of agencies who do regular weekly in-person training or monthly webinar training with, big groups of people, right? So there's a lot of training out there that's not great. And there's a lot of folks who are not giving any training, right? So I think
Mhm.
that's a big one. It's like you have to have that industry capability. Like you have to be good as well as wanting to actually run that business. I know I've seen that from HPM. So,
Yeah, and just 2 cents on that. I mean, if
yeah,
you don't have that knowledge, make sure you partner with somebody that does, and that's
right,
bottom line. Yeah.
right. Yep. Yeah, we've also seen not everyone has to, right? Like you can hire out a trainer. The trainer can be an agent part-time. That's very common, right? So someone
Mhm.
who's like, hey, I don't have the appetite to start my own agency, but I also know that I like don't have the maybe the hustle to make my full income off of just writing business. I can train 10 hours a week, right? I can do those ride-alongs and support people. So there's lots of ways to find a good partner to help you like figure out that next step with your agency. I think is kind of the short answer there. Um,
Absolutely.
we have a ton of questions in the chat. We have a ton of questions that we have like that people submitted ahead of time. Maybe we'll just like start to go through some of those. And
Good.
Spark team, you can tell me if I'm off base there. But okay, don't give away all your secrets. But like in general, and this is a question we got in various forms. Like, what are like the best recruitment methods? Like, are you posting on Indeed? Are you going to certain locations? Are you hosting one-on-ones? Like generally, like what are you looking for and how are you recruiting?
Man, you're asking for the magic golden bullet.
That one's impossible to answer. It's like leads are never a silver bullet, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would say, so in the beginning, if you're starting your agency, um, make friends with agents. That's how I started. I had just friends that I knew. Like if you're going to rollouts and kickouts or kickoffs and all this stuff, like
Hmm.
be a social creature, meet other agents. And I always made friends with agents because it's just better to make friends than enemies. I mean, that's my thing. So like when I did decide to start an agency, that wasn't the purpose of me making friends. I just did. I had probably 20 or 30 friends that were agents that I was able to call right away and be like, hey man, I'm thinking
I'm
about
doing
doing
this
this
thing.
crazy
Yeah.
thing. Like, talk me off this ledge. And they were there to kind of also help mentor me and give me some feedback on like, what I should be doing. So creating that, circle of trust. And like I said, like to get started, really, as a general agency, 5 agents is really all you need, and one of them
Hmm.
could be you to start to sell if that makes sense for you. So it's not like you have to go crazy right away. And then as you start to grow, what ends up happening if you do it really well and you're there for your agents and you're making it happen, recruiting then kind of in the beginning was very organic. It was word of mouth. And we would have an agent come from another agency, and then they knew everybody there. It was like pulling a sweater string, if you will. It was just kind of crazy. It wasn't my intention. Like, I mean, no ill will, but like we were doing things very, very differently. So, make sure that you have something unique about your agency to be attractive.
Right.
Uh, the channels don't matter. I mean, LinkedIn, Indeed, postcards, billboards, TV, they all work and they all don't. It all depends on like what you have on there, right?
Yeah.
So the channel doesn't matter. It's like, what are you offering that is so unique in the market that, oh man, I got to work with these guys, right? That's huge. And like, plug the Spark. I mean, your CRM is unbelievable. The automation that you guys have built, how you do the software, the support there. I mean, for us, it was a no-brainer, so like it helped level up our FMO so we can support our agencies.
Right.
And that's what you need to look for. And go ahead, look around. Like, there's no one out there like what these guys have got. So it's like no brainer.
Yeah.
But like, what is your specific thing, right? Like, we have an agency that focuses on the Puerto Rican market, and he does nothing but radio and podcast, right? Like, that's his thing. So what is your thing?
Yeah.
For me personally, it was physician marketing. I was really big on physician marketing because I came from that world. I could talk their talk. So agents were like, how are you getting leads from doctors? You're blowing my mind. I was like, well, I'll teach you. I'll show you. And that's what we do today. So recruiting organic. And then at the end, when you're really ready to scale, it's about what value are you going to bring, and then put that word out wherever you want. I think some of you guys came from Facebook or, different ads and things like that. I mean, it's just, that's just a channel. It's just a way of saying like, hey, join us. But like, what is your offering? What are you going to get from that is really the main key component.
Right. Demonstrating your value and leading with the purpose and having the recruitment be like a subsidy of that, right? Or
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the magic bullet is like, what makes you so great? Why should I work with you versus anyone else? And building that value out, and like Spark is like our hack on that stuff. So, boom.
Love it. I saw a question that I loved because I've heard it from a lot of folks. It's like, you don't want to micromanage your agents, but you want to make sure that you're getting production out of them and that they're staying focused and that like the work that you're putting in is worth it. So how do you balance that line of like, okay, it's either time for me to like really work on this agent and like push them across the line to like get them to be like, oh, I got it, now I'm cruising, or stop spending time with them completely and stop wasting your time on them and focusing on, other folks.
Yeah, I've made that mistake. You invest a lot of time in a person, and then they're just not getting it. So I would recommend having that conversation very early with all of your agents. Like, here is what I expect from you, right? For me, it's like, you better be on my Monday morning conference call at 9, because I'm going to give you the lowdown on everything you need to know from last week and this week coming up, right? You need to be at our meetings. You need to come to the office. You need to show up to these social events. You need to read your email. So we make that very evident up front, because what will end up happening is they'll come back to you and say, you don't do anything for me. Like, you don't do anything for me. And I'm like, dude, like, you're never on my calls. You don't read your emails. You don't show up for the meetings. You're never around. Like, what are you talking about? Right. So they end up firing themselves in a lot of ways. But what you have to do is like, put that up front, right? These are my, like, I'm going to do all these things for you. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. You're going to get a great CRM system, or we're going to hook you up with marketing, with the physicians and whatever. We'll do all these things for you. But here's what I need from you. You better show up. You better bring it. And like, so when they don't come, they end up firing themselves, because they're not going to have that conversation, right? They're going to be like, oh yeah, they did tell me up front, like I had to be at the meetings, and I'm deciding not to show up to those meetings.
Right.
It's on you, right?
Yeah.
But I will say, don't get discouraged, because there is a generality that 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your agents. That means you're doing pretty well. So just know that you got 100 agents, 20 of them will be, killers on wheels.
Yep. And I know we don't have 2 weeks to get into it, but I would love to just like touch on the onboarding experience that you have, because I know you have a lot of it that's like personable, and then you have a lot of it that's automated and really like, smart, if you will. So Someone asked about onboarding. I'd love to just like hear how that has evolved and like what your maybe mentality is there.
Yeah, so I am a self-proclaimed geek on tech stuff. So I'm like, I love AI, I love automations and all that. And I got into automations very early, which is one of the key reasons why we were able to scale so quickly. But automations is a big part of our culture. But our onboarding process has recently changed. It's really amazing. I'm almost to the point now, almost, I'm going to say that with an asterisk, that we can onboard an agent in less than 10 minutes, which is like unreal. Like I'm breaking people's heads over here. And it's only because we hired a new VP of operations and he's a wizard, right? So essentially the onboarding process looks like, hey, I'm interested in joining HPM. You would get an email that would invite you to our agent portal we call HQ. In HQ, you're going to fill out a form. You'll need to have a few documents like your AHIP, E&O process, insurance license, that kind of thing. If you've got the PDFs, you'll upload it there, you fill out the form, and you're done. And our contracting team will reach out by phone to introduce themselves, and you'll get an email, and everything's done in the portal. So you're not having to search through emails or text messages or phone calls. Once everything gets cleared, then you'll go in and select which carriers you want to contract with, and then from there everything's automated. So you select, let's say Humana, which is our big seller this year. Go in, you select Humana, and whether it's a new contract, meaning like you don't have it, or it's a transfer. And then there's instructions on what you need to do to transfer. You click a button and off it goes. So it's really, really a neat system. And then that pairs in with Spark because they have an incredible contracting team as well to assist us on some of the heavy lifting stuff. So if you have an agency and you have multiple agents, Spark helps us with like bulk uploads. They help us with getting, your Spark CRM all set up. So all the tech rolls out after we've gotten you contracted. It's really an exciting time for us because we've been through a lot of headaches in getting that onboarding process started, but it's smooth. It's
Yeah.
really easy.
I think one thing also is it can weed people out too, right? So the people who you're just talking about, they fire themselves because they don't show up. If they don't complete these steps, like you've got automations reminding them, you don't have to call them, you don't have to get on them, you don't have to invite them over, right? You don't have to buy them dinner. You can trust your system that it's if someone's actually interested, they're gonna make it through, right? So cool. And then yeah, can you maybe talk you talked about your Monday meetings, like what about training? Like what specifically do you guys do for training? Like if someone's like, "Hey, I'm with a client or I was just with a client and I felt unprepared," like what do they do right then and there?
So there's two different things we're talking about in that question.
Sure.
It's training and then there's support,
Right.
right? I will say this up front because I tell every agent this. It is your responsibility to know your stuff. Not your FMOs, not your NMA, you. You have an agreement with your state to be an insurance agent, and it is your responsibility to learn the material so you do not mislead any of your clients.
Yep.
That said, it is also your responsibility to get your butt into training, right? I have a saying here. It is keep one foot in the classroom and the other one in the field at all times. Whether you've been in this business for 10 minutes or 10 years, this is a business you must continue to learn. So if you do not have the mentality, you may not want to be in this business. And you definitely do not want to lead other agents with your misknowledge. So
Right.
learning is key so you can teach it. And there's a very big difference in that. So we have carrier trainings every day. We have internal trainings all the time. We have automated trainings. We have HPM University. So it's, linear. You can go in there and do a training at 3 a.m. if you're crazy.
I love it.
But like there's so much training that we have. And then like Spark has trainings in the box, like click a
Yep.
link and you've got that going. You guys do webinars as well to support us and our team. So there's no lack of training whatsoever. So that's the first part. It's out there. Go find it. And I'll be honest with you. If you open up your email right now, any of you guys on this call, I guarantee you probably got an invite for a training today. Guaranteed from one of your carriers. If you're in this business, why are you not going to it? Okay. So that's the first one. The second thing is the support. Who do you call when you are seriously jammed up and you're in front of a client? You better have a dang good person to call. And I will say this, our phone is answered in less than 60 seconds.
Wow.
Always. We have no phone tree. So if you call us, we will answer, and then we'll route your call to whoever it needs to be. Our sales agents will give out their personal cell phone numbers. I will give you my number as well, but I will tell you that I'm terrible with answering my phone, so probably not a good idea. Text messaging is fine. I'm cool with that. But I know you're going to give them my email too. So like email's great. Terrible with email. I will get to you, but text is always better. So we'll connect and then text messaging and all that. Yeah.
Well, hey, we are at time. It's 1:45 on the East Coast. We have we'll give like 5 more minutes, but we don't want to force folks to stay on. But if we can answer a couple more questions here. Um, all right, let's see. We have like, I don't know, more questions than I feel like I know what to do with. So I apologies in advance. I'm not going to get to everybody because 5 minutes is not enough. But let's talk about this.
Give me a
Yeah.
good one, Charlie. Give me a good one.
I don't want to spend too much time on this one because it's so often the answer is like it depends, right? But like, how do you think about someone asked, do you bring on individual agents or do you bring on agencies? Obviously, the
Mm.
answer is both. Or I guess not obviously, that's a bad way to answer that question, but it's both, right? But like, how do you think about that? Like, how do you think about hierarchy structure? Like, you're an individual agent, you're like thinking about starting an agency, and then you're an agency, and you're like, do I hire sub agencies or do I hire agents, right? So what's maybe your
Mhm.
mentality for like continuing to build your org out over time?
Yeah, I'll tell you from my experience what has happened to me, and it's probably will happen in the future for other folks. Is initially we built our business plan on supporting individual agents, and we still hold that true. It's our hedgehog concept, and I actually keep this little guy in front of me to remind me of that. This is Sonic, by the way. My son named him Sonic. So I keep Sonic there to remind myself, like, hey, our goal is to support individual agents as like the thing. But what ended up happening is we had a lot of organic um, growth within. So an agent got the bright idea, like, hey, Justin, I can do what you did, and then I would sit down and say, all right, let me ask you a few questions. Are you crazy? Do you take medication? Do you hate yourself? Do you not like your family? Do you like working 80 hours a week? Are you, so totally joking, but like making sure that they know that like this is going to be a real thing.
Yep.
And if they answered, hopefully they didn't answer yes to any of those things, but if they answer like, yeah, this is what I want to do, then we would lay it out for them. Like, this is what we expect from you, and we're going to give you overrides, and we're going to support you, and these are all the tools and everything that you're going to get. So any of our agencies that onboard, we have an agency agreement, and we share with them like, look, we're going to give you all these great things, including all the tech from Spark and all the great things that Spark has to offer. You're going to get all these things, and we're gonna help you manage it and grow your business, right? But these are the things we expect from you. So that's very clear internally. You'll
Yep.
get to a point where agencies will seek you out because they're not happy with their upline. And that kind of happened to us where we weren't really necessarily focusing on agencies, but there's such a need for what we do collectively, and we're changing the game. I think that agencies are just seeking us out. They're like, yo, we need to be a part of what you're doing, and we want to grow our agency faster, better, future proof, if you will. So there's some organic there, and then you'll get to a point in the scaling mode towards the end where you're like, okay, now how do I really go after this model? For us, 60% of our business comes from agency partners, and then 40% comes from direct agents.
Hmm.
That's just our split, and I've seen different splits on different things on like how people want to do it. So you can get super creative in this business. That's the cool
Yep.
part too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the other question we got a lot is like about commissions and like how much the agencies make and all that. And I don't think we
Mhm.
should really answer that here, but like to your point, like there's a lot of creative ways to make it work for you and for your downline or a sub agency, right? So Justin is there to support you on that. Spark is there to support you on that. numbers in this industry can be fleeting to get to pin down. So like we all get that the data is tough. But yeah, there's always kind of a way to make it work, and if not, there's some kind of way to move forward. So
Yeah,
um,
I'll say this about
cool.
overrides specifically. Um, overrides are specifically, they are there as an administration fee for you to be able to run your business like a business. It is not extra commissions. It is not a commission because you sold X amount. This is an administration fee. This is different. This is going towards your overhead to pay that trainer for your additional time outside of sales, to have that assistant. That is what overrides are there for. Now, with that said, especially in Florida, it's a pandemic. People just handing out overrides. A, it's illegal. Don't get caught in that, because I've seen people go down. It's stupid. Don't do that. And B, they're not using the overrides properly to support their agents. They're just pocketing the money.
All right.
Also stupid. Don't do that, right? So that is your income for your business, and so you need to treat it that way. There are different levels of overrides. Okay, it is based on two components: how many agents you have, but most importantly, what is your run rate, or how many apps are you going to produce in that year? And it's all negotiable, but you can't come to the table and ask for a raise if you ain't doing it, right? So like those are outlined properly, and you should pick an organization that has that clearly defined. We do. That's just one of the things that I would say about overrides.
Yep, makes sense. I agree. I think that um, if it's a race to the top for everybody, it's kind of a race to the bottom for everybody as well. Like if everyone's like, oh,
Mhm.
like I'm just going to get this next level, then that person's just going to leave your agency in the next year. So I think like having some rigidity there is really helpful, and saying, hey, like, yes, let's get you there. Here's where you're at now, and having those goals and having those expectations. And to your point, like setting that from day one when you introduce them to your agency. So
Yeah, and I see in the questions and answers about like higher contract levels and things like that. Again, yeah, you can go shopping, cool. You can get a higher, you might be able to get a higher contract than what you have now or whatever. But if you're going off of those things, then it comes to the point with us specifically, the more you make, the less we're going to do for you, because we're giving you the money.
right.
Go figure it out, right? So like if you need, all these tools, resources, trainings, business development,
Yeah.
and you and I joke, right? I'm like, you're like, hey, what can I do for HPM? And I'm like, get the heck out of my way. That's what you can do, because we're at the top of the top, because there's not really much else you can do for us, because we're using our overrides correctly. We're investing it. We're doing the
Right.
things to get it
Right.
off your plate. You don't have to. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay for those things. So racing to the top also means racing to the bottom in resources. So just
Right.
know that, like, hey, I'm not ready for that to take on, a commission analyst. I'm not ready to take on a full-time marketer. Then stay at your level and wait till you get to that point.
Yep. Yep. I think we can wrap on that. I know we have a ton of questions. Maybe we'll have to do a round two at some point, but here's Justin's information. Thank you, Justin, so much for the time. Really appreciate getting to chat with you in this format. We've had many one-on-ones, but not with a bunch of people asking questions along the way. So,
This has
um,
been fun, really
yeah,
fun. I did have a Celsius, and this is my coffee. So like I'm totally jacked. I can go for round two right now. Let's do it.
he's juiced up. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks for a lot of really, really good questions. Sorry we didn't get to everything, but stick around. Cool. Thanks all.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie.